You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and I'm joined, as always, by your co-host, Kevin. Kevin, how are we doing tonight?
Doing good, man. It is, I guess, it's do or die week, right? So hopefully you're cemented inside your playoffs, and maybe you're just jockeying for a little bit of position. Maybe a bye week, if that's what your playoff structure gives you. But if you're still in the fight and you need this week for a win and in, we are here to help y'all out. So I'm ready to get after it and get these folks in the playoffs, man.
You know, speaking of win and in and all that good stuff, I have got a precarious position here in the home league where I have managed to scrape and claw and got myself into one of the playoff spots. However, there are three teams that are tied, and at this point, it's there's a large majority of the playoff field is cemented. There's still two spots very much kind of up for grabs, and somebody of those three that are all tied with the same record, I've got the tiebreaker based off of points there, and neither one of them are going to catch me in points. However, there's also some of that, jockeying for position when it comes to it, because I'm looking forward to the first round of playoffs. And quite frankly, I think I'd rather end up in the 8th seed right now than I would in the 7th seed on this thing, simply from the standpoint of the matchup there. Just the way things kind of break down schedule and all that. I think I'd have a better road on being the 8th seed than the 7th seed this week. Or in week 15. So it's interesting because the team I play this week, I would play again and most likely play again in the first week. And he's got a stout roster. Like when it's all said and done, he's just got a stout roster that, quite frankly, I don't want to have to face that week to week there. So it's interesting, right? If I win, I'm obviously in, and I'm pretty much locked, and I will lock down that 7th seed on that one. There's no chance for me to move up. Or I could gamble on that thing. And if I lose, as long as one of those other two teams loses, I'm in. However, both of those teams actually have winnable matchups. And, looking at the projections on that, they are extremely close, right? Like I'm looking at one of the teams that I would need to lose is actually favored to win their matchup in what should be a high scoring affair. Another one of those projected to lose their matchup by only like 6 points. And in our crazy scoring format league, 6 points is, most people think, oh, well, that's a touchdown. Like, you'd be all right. No, in our league, that's like somebody caught a 3-yard pass for a first down, and that would be like 6 points. So,
right. Yeah, 6 points is nothing, right? You sneeze.
Yes. And
your guy scores 6 points. That's yes. True.
So it's a interesting position I find myself in here. And so I think the easiest route is just to win, make sure that I secure my spot there, and then hope. I think there was another scenario when I was looking through this thing that if the guy I'm playing, if he managed to win and the guy in first place loses, they would flip-flop positions there. And so I could stay as the 7th seed, hopefully. And my guy wins, the other one takes a loss. Although the number 1 seed is taking on the last place team in the league here in week 14. So I don't know how realistic that is. So
no, I think they're kind of walking in. So, and I agree with that, right? Like it's tough. You want to have the flexibility to kind of pick your matchup a little bit if you're, know you're in, but man, that's a lot up to chance. And
right.
You can't win if you're not in, type thing, right? So you just gotta make sure you cement yourself inside the playoff bracket, and then just hope for the best, right?
Yeah. So I like I said, it's an interesting position, and it's one that we'll fill everybody in on what that looks like here. This time next week, and as we make that march. And like I said, I've always had far better luck in the home league, coming into it as a 6, 7, 8 seed than I ever have as a 1 or 2 seed. So I'm in familiar territory. I like it. This is where I typically make my championship pushes from, is on the bottom half of the bracket. So let's go. In fact, Jaden chiming in the playoffs. Playoff week 1, let's go. Man, that is a tough road if you're in a if week 14 marks the start of your playoff bid on that one, with 6 teams on buys, and there's a lot of fantasy relevant players on buy this week as well. So that was one thing I was glad with our home league. We actually moved that back, the playoffs starting back a week, because it was originally set to go week 14. We moved it back to week 15, got rid of the 2-week championship on that one. So I was glad that we did that one this year, because those playoffs are a tough road in the.
Yeah, and as much as I like the idea of a 2-week championship, right, going 14, 15, and for the quarters and semis, and then 16, 17 as the dual week championship to kind of get a real champion, right? Because players can stub their toe, they have a bad week, but if you win a 2-week, you had the best roster, right? Like that was just I like that idea, but these bye weeks make it impossible because we don't want to play in week 18, right? Like we've talked about this. We don't want to play in week 18. So then you're stuck. You go 15, 16, 17. This is it. So, ifs and nuts, right? But, or ifs and buts. Sorry, I guess.
We're candy and nuts. We'd all have a Merry Christmas, which,
right,
by the way, is coming up. So hopefully you can turn if and buts into candy and nuts and have a Merry Christmas there. Anyway, fun little wordplay. Absolutely. And that's the thing that I never really understood with the NFL here, right? Like we decided to add another week onto the season, add an extra game in there, but we decided to move the bye week back again. So like, that's the thing that makes zero sense to me is you're realistically these teams that are now getting the bye, and even in week 13 bye, you realistically made all of those teams wait 3 months before they got their bye. In order to make that march and make those things happen there, which, that's one of those that I'm a firm believer. You've got 8, you've got 32 teams. You could realistically get those done in a matter of 6 weeks, something like that, and get it done, weeks 5 through 11 type of thing. And there's no reason that you couldn't do that, or a 6 through 12 type of deal there. And you've got teams a little bit more kind of in there. Yeah, maybe you get a little bit of lighter matchups here on some of these things, but I think the overall, television slate would be better as well for it. But Jaden saying that he's playing against Monty and Watson this week. I don't know that strikes as much fear into me as it might have a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, I think Monty, there's always the Chicago's obviously a run first team. You're going to be dealing with that, but Watson did not look particularly good, right? Like 2 defensive special teams touchdowns from the Browns after I was just commenting on how they don't really score, points for defense last week. And then they score a special teams and a defensive touchdown at each, that kind of really helped pave the way. So while the Browns kind of controlled that game, it was sloppy Texans play. It was not dominant Browns offense. So, Watson, he's going to have some growing pains. We knew he did. We tried to warn everybody of this. Like, I did everything I could to not start him last week. Now, there was 1, maybe 2 leagues where I was put in the spot where I had to. It turned out okay, but it's not the potential top 5 quarterback that we've come to expect, 2 years ago. It's going to take a little bit of time. So I'm not too worried about that.
All right. Jaden saying they're both on bye. I thought he was talking about Deshaun Watson, not Christian Watson. And yeah, so at that point, you don't have to face a guy that has been on fire, scoring multiple touchdowns every week for the last month. So that's a plus. And Monty's always been pretty good there as a RB2 or a flex candidate there. So Jaden, I think you're looking pretty good there on the old playoff week 1 matchup there. And again, guys, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, throw them in the chat. Let's get those things out and let's get those things going. Get you guys ready to rock and roll here to either start your playoffs. Let's make sure we clinch into the playoffs, and let's look beyond there towards week 1 of the playoffs there as well. And make sure we're really rocking and rolling across all fronts there. But Kevin, kind of an interesting week of football there. Any thoughts on some of those games this weekend?
Seemingly a lot of injuries this week, right?
Mm.
A lot of injuries here towards the end of the season. So Lamar Jackson went down against the Broncos. Kenneth Walker went down in his matchup. Travis Kelce had yet another kind of ho-hum game as the Cincinnati Bengals just have the Chiefs number, right? Like
Right.
it's just it's just that matchup, right? It doesn't pair well with what the Chiefs do on offense. The Bengals do they're a good enough offensive team to where they're not constantly playing catch up against the Chiefs, right? They can go blow for blow with them. And for whatever reason, their defense just manages to make kind of one more play. And that's really what that came down to. So the Broncos still suck. So there we go. The Commanders and Giants tie.
Right. By the way, how happy were you? Just to regale the folks that may have missed it on the Friday show, you called for the under and the Giants to cover, and that the over under was 40.5. So you got it. You kept the under by the hook on that one. How much going into the overtime were you rooting for no more points?
Honestly, because we cover those, I did not put money on that game, right? Like I know we talked about it, but I was not actively pushing for that game. I saw it that I thought the Giants were going to win the game, as I said on the Friday show. They score. It's like, okay, they're up, and then Washington scored real close towards the end of the game. Like, all right, overtime, no big deal. Giants are at home, and nothing ever came from it. I kept looking through. I was like, how are they still tied? And there was like 3 minutes left. The Giants were pinned way back in their own territory. I was like, well, that's great. I said, so they're going to make a couple first downs, and then they're going to get stalled out about the 45. And here we are. We're going to, flip field position, and we're going to tie. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I was like,
yeah.
What a stupid, ugly game.
Yeah.
So it was not the best weekend for entertaining football. Outside of the Bengals Chiefs game was a lot of fun to watch.
An interesting one that came up right when I was watching the Broncos telecast there, and they kept talking about how Nathaniel Hackett and is he on the hot seat, and one of the announcers goes, well, but they've played so many close games and they've been down into it and to the end of it. For an offensive-minded offensive-minded head coach such as Nathaniel Hackett is, I think the 2000 Cleveland Browns have now actually surpassed the Broncos in number of points scored this far into a season.
Yeah, I think so. And yes, he's absolutely done. He's on the hot seat. You cannot average 13.1 points a game or whatever the heck it is now. Now I think it might be 12.9 points a game, something like that. And expect to keep your job in the NFL. This guy, great offensive mind, arguably, I guess. People in Denver aren't seeing it. People in Green Bay might argue otherwise, but how much is that LaFleur?
Yeah.
And that's
how much of that was Aaron Rodgers on top of it? Right. Like how much of that was LaFleur and Rodgers and Devontae Adams all being there and doing things and all of that, because we've seen the Packers kind of seen this resurgence since we've seen a little bit of this breakout coming from Christian Watson, right? Like it seems like they just need a good wide receiver on the same page as Aaron Rodgers to kind of unlock that offense.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And this is the problem with coordinators, right? When you hire in these coordinators, they sit in these meetings and yes, they're sponges, right? And they soak all this stuff in and they're able to draw it out on a whiteboard and take some of this and some of that and kind of talk it. But when it comes down to game time X's and O's and being able to make decisions on the fly and adjust your game plan, right? Just ever so slightly to give your team an advantage and being able to hold people accountable and putting in that extra bit of work. So that way, when you're tired in the fourth quarter and there's 5 minutes left, your guys find a way to dig deep and pull out that win. The Broncos don't have it. Nope. They just don't. Like, you have now lost 7 one-score games, and would be.
I think it's more than that even, isn't it? The Raiders the first time around was a bit of a blowout there. And then they had another one.
Yeah, because they've had
a couple weeks ago, but almost
three
every one
overtime games, right? Lost all three, so those are one possession. And so maybe it is more. Maybe it's 9 out of their 12 games, one possession games.
I'm looking it up just because I want to see.
And the fact that you would be now 10-2, right? 10-2 if you score 18 points in regulation. 10-2, and as bad as this offense is, how much would the script flip if we scored 18 points in regulation? They were 10-2, and they would be in first place in the AFC.
Yeah,
we would be touting how amazing this defense is and how the offense complements them just enough. And while it's not pretty, they're able to keep the ball moving and the chains going just enough to make sure that defense stays healthy to where they can peel back, rush the passer in the fourth quarter. And here we have, this defensive juggernaut. That's what we'd be talking about. We'd be talking about the defensive juggernaut Denver Broncos, not the poor, pitiful offense Denver Broncos. Because this defense, I keep telling y'all, and I know everyone has probably seen it by now, this defense is really freaking good, guys.
Right.
Like, really, really stinking good. Everyone wants to talk about the Niners right now and their defense. Guess what? The Broncos beat the Niners because those two defenses went head-to-head, and the Broncos were just enough better on that day.
Yeah, they got Jimmy Garoppolo to step out of the end zone. That was the difference in that game. And actually looking at it, there's only been 2 games this whole season that the Broncos lost by more than 2 possession. And even in their wins, every other game has been a 1 possession game in there. Jeez. So you've seen some of these things where it was, they like the Titans, they lost 17-10. That's still a touchdown. That's still a 1 possession game. So the 2 teams that they've managed to lose to by more than a single possession were the Raiders the first time around, and then the Panthers this week or last week, which Sam Darnold at the helm put up a much better performance than Russell Wilson at the helm. Sam Darnold, by the way, fighting for a job. Russell Wilson sitting there with a $250 million contract. Anyway, we can probably move on. I know that there's some questions in the comments here, things like that. And this is one of those, you and I could probably just stay on this topic all night, talking about how not great it is here being a Broncos fan this season. Anyway,
right.
Jaden saying that Kenny Pickett is him. Terrence has the question, should I drop Brady after rostering Deshaun Watson and Geno Smith? I'd be all right playing Geno Smith over Brady at this point, I think, rest of the season.
Yeah, I don't know that you're gaining anything by having Watson. Like 1 week, I guess. Brady pulled it out, right? I mean, Brady pulled it out at the end, had 244 yards or something, and the 2 touchdowns. I mean, Brady got you there. It was ugly. It was until the very end, but Brady got you there.
But I mean, his next
overall
2 matchups
yes. I mean, you have the Niners, right? That's going to be a tough matchup,
and then Cincinnati right behind it. Yeah,
so I get it. Go ahead. Like, I don't think you're hurting anything. The worst part of I don't know if there's a worst part about it. Go ahead. That's fine. Make room for it.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. Geno Smith has a pretty nice schedule looking forward, right? Like, he's got Carolina this week, so I'd rather play Geno over Brady. Next week's a tough one, San Francisco, right? That's going to be tough. Kansas City gives up yards in bunches there in week 16, and then if you're sitting there in the championship spot, you're talking the Jets, which have been tough at the defensive spot there, but who knows? By then, maybe you've got Deshaun Watson having shaken off the rust, and actually being able to look a little bit more competent there, where he plays Washington in week 17. So I think you're okay there doing that one. I wouldn't have any problem rolling that. Terrence asking, should I start Rachaad White or Jamal Williams at RB2? I'm putting Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams is coming week. Absolutely. Rachaad White's got a tough matchup against the Niners, man. Do not expect much out of him. It's going to be a gruesome game. The Bucs already have problems, moving the ball, going across the country. it's going to be a tough game for Rachaad White. Absolutely. Jamal Williams against the Vikings. He's probably going to land in the end zone again because he's just had that type of year. So you're playing Williams.
And not only that, Rachaad White, it looked like he was starting to maybe take over some of that backfield, but Leonard Fournette is heavily, heavily involved in that one. Both of them see passing work. Both of them see rushing work on this one. Rachaad White happened to get in the end zone last night, but there's a good chance that you can reasonably expect this to be a 50-50 split between Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette. And at that point, I'll take the touchdown upside of Jamal Williams. Absolutely. Not to mention the matchup is the Vikings have given it up through the air tremendously on that. Not necessarily as much on the ground as they have on the air, but that's a far easier matchup than the Niners, who are just stalling out everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Jaden asking Najee, Rachaad White, or Foreman. Rank it between those three. Rachaad White is at the bottom of my list.
Yeah. Man, Foreman and Najee are kind of 1A and 1B in my mind. Like I see them being about even. Najee's been playing better here as Pickett has been playing better. You got TJ Watt back, and so that defense has been playing a bit better. So I feel okay about that. The Bengals, not the Bengals. The Ravens are going to have a tough matchup, right? I mean, they have Hundley starting most likely instead of Lamar Jackson. So that's going to create most likely some more opportunities there for the Steelers. Carolina's going cross country. I think Foreman slightly. I think Foreman slightly, and then Najee right behind him, and then Rachaad White's like 3 steps below that. I really don't want any part of him against San Francisco this week.
No, I really don't either. I mean, the matchup for Foreman is a little bit better than you've got Najee. So based on matchup, I'll probably lean that way just a little bit more so. But it really kind of is a coin flip for me between Najee and Foreman this week. So cool. All righty. Well, guys, again, if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, let's throw them in the chat. Let's get talking about these things. Let's get that rocking and rolling. Kevin, while we're waiting for some more questions to come in here, let's go ahead and hit up the waiver wire.
Hold on real quick
yes.
Before we touch the waiver wire. What do you make of Tennessee firing their GM? Not mid-season, but late season.
Right.
After he just got blown up by the guy he traded away on draft day.
Yeah, that tells me that the ownership group there did not want to see AJ Brown leave town, and the GM didn't want to spend the money on that. And so, it was one of those that was a decision that ultimately kind of cost him his job. When you look at it from the standpoint that AJ Brown has put up better yards than the entirety of the Tennessee Titans receiving core when it comes to receptions, when it comes to yards, when it comes to touchdowns scored. He alone, and granted, Philadelphia is a very high-flying offense this year, and Jalen Hurts certainly has seemingly taken that emergence as as a passer, more so than just a runner as well this year. But I think that was one of those that he made that trade, and somebody that controlled whether he still had a job or not wasn't happy about that. And then when you see that guy just come out and roast teams this year and put up better numbers than the entirety of your receiving core, they said, nope, we'll go a different direction. Like that was very interesting, but it was that was one of those that the GM, right? Like it's funny when you think about it, because the GM's job is to put out a team to win games, right? Like is to assemble a roster for the coach to be able to go out and win games. Like that is at the core essence of a GM's job, as well as, making sure that salary cap and all of that comes into play, right? Like, but the bare basic function of that job is to assemble a roster that can win NFL games and ultimately try and win a championship. The Titans are leading their division. Like they're leading their division. They won the division last year. They were an NFC. They were in the AFC championship game a few years ago. Like this core group of people, the GM obviously did their job from the standpoint that they're putting out a roster that can win. win a lot, have even some deep playoff runs there, and yet he loses his job. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that the AFC South is atrocious outside the Titans, right? The next closest team are the Colts at 4-8-1, who have been a disappointment, and their head coach got fired. The Jaguars, who are, still on this come up type of deal there at 4-8. They're, Trevor Lawrence starting to make some things. They're starting to seemingly put together a young core that could potentially do well in the future. And then the Texans are the Texans, which are, you're kind of the garbage fire of the, the dumpster fire of the NFL, and have been for, a while here. So, yeah, I mean, it's just very interesting when you break it down and look at it from the standpoint of the guy did his job and ultimately lost his job because of a move that he made that, seemingly Treylon Burks looks like he very well could be, he could have the tools to be and make progressions to be there, but it's going to be a couple of years down the road. So that's one of those that I'm very interested to see what happens with Treylon Burks and where he progresses to over probably the next season or two, and see if it's a little bit more of a comparable thing, in which case, hindsight 2020. But anyway, that was my take on that.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of that, right? Like, it's just Burks has had a rough rookie year, and you see what A.J. Brown is doing with the Eagles and how high-flying and flashy that looks, and then having him light you up and thinking, man, we had that guy on our roster. Like, it's not that we want that guy. It's we had him, and we actively made the decision to not pay him because we are so wrapped up in a depleting offensive line, an aging running back, and a mediocre quarterback. Like, it's a weird situation, and the NFL is a cutthroat business, but holy smokes, man, it's hard to see past that one decision, and then the head-to-head matchup as the linchpin that just went, okay, screw it, we're done. We're going to blow this thing up, and we're going to start over. We're going to bring a new guy in. We're going to revitalize and get some better talent on the offensive line. After we let guys walk out the door, we're going to get under the salary cap and move some money around to do the right things, because this is not going to be sustainable.
Right. And that's the thing that I think ultimately kind of did him in, was the, it's, kind of speculation here, but ultimately I think that was some of the things that did him in, was the fact that, you had very talented guys that you were allowing to, head other places, leave. And that's one of those that players start looking at that okay, I'm not going to probably be here beyond this contract, because if I want to get a pay increase, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. And that can have some detrimental things going on in the locker room, things like that. And that's ultimately, when we hear players talk, when we hear coaches talk, we hear GMs talk, all that locker room is probably first and foremost the most important thing when it comes to it. Because if you've got control of the locker room, you've got a good squad of players, you can win games. And if you lose the locker room, it's awfully hard to win games at that point. So
yeah, absolutely.
There's a whole lot of that goes into that as well. Before we hit that, any other thoughts on that one?
No, I think that kind of touches with the highlights, at least.
Cool. Jaden's got a question for us. Jacoby Myers, Jamison Williams, Mike Williams. Jamison Williams has got to show me something for him to put him in my starting lineup. Like, I think he's a phenomenal player. I think that he was probably one of the most gifted players at the wide receiver position going into this draft. And had he not torn his ACL, probably would have been the first receiver taken. Like, that's just kind of my opinion on that one. But again, right, ACLs are one of those that we see guys that have proven it on the NFL field so they're out for a year before they start playing. And then it's usually that season's kind of a ho-hum deal. And it's the season, it's about the second season removed from the injury that we see these guys actually pop and play and give back to their former selves. So the fact that I've got a rookie that's going to be adjusting to the overall speed of the game, coming off of an injury like that, I like him as a potential stash to see if he pops a little bit, but I'm not playing him this week. Mike Williams, same thing too, right? Coming off of an injury like that, I want to see him get back on the field, see what he looks like there a little bit. So as much as I don't necessarily want to play Jacoby Myers, it's going to be Jacoby Myers this week for me between those three.
I would lean I would lean Mike Williams over Jacoby Myers, but I'm not going to put up a fight for those who want to play Jacoby Myers because he has been active. He has been playing. You kind of know what to expect. Jameson Williams is definitely third on that list and a ways down until we see what his physical capabilities truly are this season. Next year, I think he could have a really, really good season paired up with St. Brown. But yeah, next year he could have a really good season paired up with St. Brown. But this year, no thanks. I'm not putting my fantasy playoffs on a guy that I have not seen truly play in the NFL yet.
Right. And quite frankly, this would be the matchup because the Vikings tend to have some of the they allow the most yards on average down the field as far as completed passes go, things like that. So like this would be the matchup that I would love to have seen, to see him in and give him a shot. But I would have wanted him to play for at least a couple of weeks and see what he looks like before I'm going to take that shot on that one. Mm-hmm. Especially if I've got, Jaden, you're saying that you're in week 1 of playoffs. Absolutely. I'm not going to waste a starting spot on a guy that hasn't played all year long and has yet to take a snap in the NFL. On that one. So, Terrence, should I keep Jameson Williams or add Slayton or Dotson? Well, we've at least seen Slayton this season. We've seen Dotson this season. I would go both of those guys over Jameson Williams. Dotson has been involved on that, but that was more when we saw
he got his touchdown last week, though.
It's true. That's true.
He had 5 grabs and a touchdown. Right. And that's more or less what he did the first couple weeks of the season.
Right. Darius Slayton, though. And as much as I do not like pointing this out, but it needs to be pointed out nonetheless. Darius Slayton's been a top 24 receiver like 4 of the last 5 weeks. Even in not great matchups, even in like the numbers really don't lie.
No, the volume's there for Slayton, right?
Yes.
And if you're looking for true depth and a guy that in a pinch you can slam into your flex spot and at least feel okay about your output, it probably is Slayton 1, then Dotson, then Williams.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In fact, I'm just kind of curious here, looking up basically the back half of the season for Slayton, where he's at. So Darius Slayton, from week 6 through 13. So big body of works, wide receiver 25 over that. So he's right there flirting with wide receiver 2 type of deal. And, some pretty good finishes in there along the way, especially the last few weeks. So Terrence saying that he currently holds the 4th seed in playoffs in a 12-man league. So yeah, I mean, at that point, you've got the roster that both of those guys are going to far more be a depth piece or potentially a flex type of option there. But I'm thinking if you're probably a 4th seed, these guys are nothing more than depth. And at that point, I'm going to take the guys that are seeing volume doing that. And I would go with Slayton or Dotson. So very good. All righty. Waiver wire time here. What are you thinking? Well, who are some guys that we need to be targeting here this week on the waiver wire?
I think Greg, so going to tight end, right? Greg Dulcich is a guy to take a look at again, right? Big week against the Ravens. With Sutton being hampered now with this hamstring, you're not quite sure what that's going to be. Russell Wilson's taking a lot of quick check down throws that does fit with the routes that Dulcich had been running. So, that's a pretty safe floor. Obviously DJ Dallas is the potential next man up in Seattle. Keeping an eye on Kenneth Walker, Tyler Huntley. If you're a Lamar owner, Tyler Huntley's a guy who can kind of fill that role well because he does run, right? You get the cheat code points of him running and throwing the ball, and he might actually be a better thrower of the football than Lamar Jackson is. So if you're a Mark Andrews owner, you might be relatively happy here this week after a full week of practice.
I am. So, I'm extremely happy on that.
So there's some things there. James Cook has really kind of started to come on for Buffalo. I think he's a guy that you could take a look at as a potential flex play. DJ Chark has had back-to-back decent weeks here for the Lions. He has another good matchup this week against the Minnesota Vikings. So I think Chark is a guy to be on the lookout for. Jared Goff to go with those Lions, right? Like Jared Goff's still available in a lot of leagues, guys, like a lot of leagues. And if you have Tom Brady and going up against the Niners, I would gladly sit Tom Brady to play Jared Goff this week. And that's just one example, right? But I'd play him over Deshaun Watson. I'd play him over, Brady. I'd probably play Goff over Tua this week just because Tua's dinged up a little bit with the ankle. We're not quite sure how that's going to look out. And because the matchup fits, right? So there's some guys there who are definitely worth the look. Let's see, Michael Gallup in short bench leagues might still be out there, right? Because he was hurt and then he came back and he didn't really do anything. The last couple of weeks, he's starting to emerge again. If for whatever reason he's out there, you want to pick him up and have him on your roster as this Cowboys offense is just cranking right now. I think those are kind of the big hitters for me this week. Derek, are you thinking something a little different or more?
I like it. You and I are right there along the same page. I missed it. Did you bring up Zonovan Jones? Zonovan Knight?
No, I did not bring up Zonovan Knight, but that's another guy, right? Even against Buffalo, I think you can play him. The volume's going to be there. He's not going to catch as many balls, but I think this kind of works for this Jets offense. White has been able to kind of revitalize this passing game and keep the offense a bit more balanced and efficient through the air. And because of that, Knight has been able to capitalize the half game 2 weeks ago and then his full game last week. He's been able to capitalize. So, yeah, he's another guy that if he's still out there for some reason, grab him up. This matchup's a little tougher against Buffalo this week. After that, he's a really solid flex play.
Absolutely. And so Zonovan Knight is a guy that's going to not necessarily be a guy that's going to be able to probably take you deep into the playoffs, things like that. This is going to be more of a spot start, short-term kind of guy here. But I think you're right? Buffalo's defense is nothing like they were at the beginning of the season. They've got a lot of injuries, guys banged up that they're hoping that they can have come back, things like that. But, Michael Carter, if he's out, Zonovan Knight needs to be a start and needs to be started while Michael Carter is out. That was another one too. Like there's some guys out there that these are some potential interesting ones that you could pick up over the next couple of, I would pick up because there's a lot of these guys out there like Alexander Madison still out there. If you've got a roster spot that you can hang on to there, I would probably pick him up and let him sit there just on the off chance, right? Dalvin Cook's been unusually healthy this year. And so that's one of those that I'd pick him up just as kind of that insurance policy heading in there. Yeah. And if nothing else, he's an easy guy to drop over the course of the playoffs. Should you need to look somewhere else. So that would be a guy that I would look at. There's always some of that looking at like week 14, are these some guys that you might pick up off a bye, things like that. I've heard a ton of speculation around Odell the last couple of weeks. I am not touching Odell at all on this one. One, he has yet to sign to a roster. Two, remember what I just said about Jameson Williams about 10 minutes ago, talking about how a lot of times we see these guys needing almost a full year removed from the injury before we see them playing back to their former selves. If Odell hits the field this year for a team, he is not going to even be a full year removed on his second ACL. So that would be some cautionary tales in there. I've got proceeding with extreme caution around Jameson Williams. Nico Collins was another guy I heard some pop and some talk around. I want no part of that Texans offense, and unless it's Dameon Pierce as a flex type of play, like that's the amount of Texan players I want to roster. So that's kind of some of the ones that I was looking at as also kind of a beware, not necessarily looking to go, in a super deep league, super deep super flex league, I'd be picking up Brock Purdy here as well, just especially if you're hurting a quarterback. If you had Jimmy G, something like that, like you'll need some of that extra depth there. So that's another guy to potentially go down there as well. But any other thoughts on this one?
No, I do not believe so.
All righty. Jaden asking, do I drop Elijah Moore for DJ Dallas?
Would you rather have receiver depth or running back depth?
And at that point, even with DJ Dallas, honestly, I'd rather have Elijah Moore in a more pass happy Jets offense than DJ Dallas, who I think is going to get buried on a depth chart here. Like I get that Kenneth Walker is, banged up, all that kind of good stuff, but there's a chance that we don't see, or that we see Kenneth Walker come back sooner than later, right? Like they're talking about it's a kind of a low ankle foot sprain type of thing. 1-2 week type of deal is what we see in a lot of cases on that one. But DJ Dallas also got banged up in that game. It was kind of in and out all game long on that one as well. So yeah, that's one of those that you're going to need to also keep a very close eye on whether or not he's going to be going on that one. They've also got Tony Jones on the lineup there as well, who looked good when he played for the Saints a couple seasons back, and you could see some pop there. So I wouldn't go all in on DJ Dallas, but it never hurts having running back depth. So
yeah, I agree. Both these guys are just going to sit on your bench anyway. Like you're not playing either one of them.
Yeah, if you're playing either one of those, we need to talk about other options. Or he could get Hunt. So Elijah Moore, DJ Dallas, Kareem Hunt.
If you're a Chubb owner, you grab Hunt just to have the handcuff there and call it good, but Hunt has zero standalone value. I think if you're a Kenneth Walker owner, you grab Dallas to have at least some type of handcuff if he can't go. And then Elijah Moore, I mean, yes, he's emerging a little bit, but he's still at best the third option on that team. And that's the problem with Elijah Moore. So, because you've also seen Corey Davis start to play better with White under center there for the Jets. So,
and I'd rather have Corey Davis than Elijah Moore as well.
I mean, yeah. So that's kind of the hard part. You're grabbing handcuffs and depth there. So I think I would lean Hunt, because I do think as Deshaun Watson gets more acclimated, they're going to let him throw the ball more than they let Jacoby Brissett throw the ball as he does get acclimated. And with that, you'll probably see Hunt get a few more checkdowns, so you'll steal some of those PPR points out of him if put in a pinch. And if Chubb goes down, Hunt has the most relevance after that.
Yeah, if Chubb goes down, Hunt's a top 10 back. Like that's how that comes to play, right? Even if Kenneth Walker misses on this one, right? Like that's what we've seen. If Chubb goes down, we've seen Hunt be able to carry through top 10 weeks, week in, week out with that kind of volume. DJ Dallas getting that kind of volume, you might see one decent game here or there, but if you give him even a run of multiple games at that, he has failed to produce at that kind of level. So, I like it. The more we talk about it, that's kind of where I'm at there as well. All righty. Any other thoughts here on the waiver wire? If not, we'll go ahead and head into the recap of the Pines and the Shines.
All right, let's go. Let's get after it.
All right, recap of the Pine and Shine. So last week, week 13, we called our Pines, we called our Shines. Alex started off calling Lamar Jackson to be a Pine against Denver. I don't think he necessarily was calling for Lamar to exit that game very early and not have a good performance there. But nonetheless, that one was a hit for Alex. What about your Pine?
My Pine this week, or last week, I guess, was Miles Sanders going up against Tennessee, right? The front seven of Tennessee plays really well against the run. Miles Sanders was not overly productive, as the Eagles did exactly what we talked about them doing, right? We saw them completely flip the script and go from a run-heavy road grader offense against the Packers to a drop back, air it out, and pick you apart passing offense against Tennessee. Like, they really did a good job going after the weaknesses of their opponents here the last 2 weeks with the Packers and Titans. So because of that, Sanders had a bad week. I'll take the win there.
Yep, that was definitely a hit for you. Mine, I missed on mine. I called for Saquon Barkley to have a bad week. Really, except for the touchdown, he did not have a very great week. But that touchdown certainly saved him on that one. He was ninth running back going into it. He finished the ninth running back. I'm gonna take the miss on that one. Call him for a pine, and the guy performs to expectations. So missed on that one. And let's go ahead and head over to the shines. Alex called for Aaron Jones to shine against Chicago, and that was a swing and a miss for him. How about your shine?
Yeah, the Aaron Jones thing. Another guy got dinged up with injuries, right? He was in and out of the lineup. The last couple of weeks, we've started to see an A.J. Dillon resurgence, going back to the waiver wire segment. If for some reason an owner got frustrated and dropped A.J. Dillon, pick him up. He's not available in nearly as many leagues as any of the other guys that we're talking about, but surely he is available in a league or two for someone. So if he's out there, grab him. My shine this week, or last week again, was Trevor Lawrence. And we really thought that matchup was going to be juicy. Lawrence got dinged up with the knee just a little bit. Another guy, injury, as we talked to at the very beginning of the show, but did not perform up to expectations, just as we thought he was kind of ready to, flip that script and kind of be that consistent, top 12 type quarterback. Throws up a big stinker against a Detroit Lions team that has been giving it up like crazy to quarterbacks this year. So I take the miss.
Yeah, that one hurt me across a few different lineups and in a few different DFS plays. But okay, Sarah. All right, so my shine, I called for Garrett Wilson to go out and have a big game, and he did not fail to deliver 8 receptions on 15 targets for 162 yards. My oh my, if he'd even got, if only he'd gotten into the end zone, it would have gone from a good, from a great week to an elite week type of thing. But finished as the wide receiver 10 on that one, so certainly catapulted him up from a back end wide receiver 1 where he was, back end wide receiver 2 where he was ranked into wide receiver 1 territory. So I'm definitely taking the hit on that one. And that moves us in the standings. Alex sitting at 12-10 this season. Kevin, you were sitting at 14-10-2, and I moved to 16-7-3. So we're closing down into it, and I think it's going to be down to you and I, my friend, as this comes down to who's going to take this thing home. I think I finally managed to hold you at bay. You had been gaining ground the last couple of weeks on me on this one, so hold the water here one more week. So.
I need a couple hits here.
That's all right. I've got no doubt in my mind that you've got some fire prepared for us here in week 14, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. Jaden asking, should he use a waiver on Hunt? So would you use waiver priority on Kareem Hunt? Going back to that question.
Depends on where your waiver priority is. If you're
if it's first waiver priority, absolutely not.
Yeah, if it's first, I'm not going to do it. But I mean,
it's a bottom half. Okay,
if it's bottom half, even 5th or lower, I mean, especially if your league is active on waivers and you don't feel like you're really going to get that stab at top priority again this season, grab him and bench him. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that there as well. All righty. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at Thursday night here. We got the Raiders. We've got the Rams. They're squaring off against each other. And the Raiders favored by 6. The over-under on this one is 44.5. What are your thoughts here?
I like the Raiders to cover. The Rams team showed a little bit of life, right? I mean, they gave Seattle in a divisional matchup, everything else. They gave Seattle some run for their money. They showed a little bit of life there, but ultimately fell flat. I think that might have been their last hurrah. I think that might have just been kind of the thing that, the last crack in the egg, if you will. So Raiders have been playing fairly well lately. Josh Jacobs has been on a tear. I think he falls back down to earth a little bit against the Rams. I expect Aaron Donald to be back in the lineup, so that'll make things a little bit tougher. But nevertheless, the Raiders have been playing well enough to win this game by a touchdown, given the Rams are completely depleted on offense.
Yeah, I think the Raiders come out and kind of smack them in the mouth here a little bit. This is one of those that, Baker Mayfield, now a Los Angeles Ram.
Stop it. We are not wasting time on Baker Mayfield. We're not doing that tonight.
Anyway, the former Oklahoma product is now a Los Angeles Ram, and this is more of a simply a depth move for them, right? Stafford is on IR. The first week that he's going to be eligible to come back is week 17. They aren't activating him. They're already out of contention, things like this. So you bring in a guy that you can see what they got, all of that kind of good stuff. More of a case of, it may be more of his role to become transition into a backup type of quarterback role there. So you bring in a guy, see what he's got. You got, a cheap, kind of a cheap play on that one there. But the fact that John Wolford is, they're still dealing with some of the injuries with Wolford, things like that. He may not be able to go. And at that point, as bad as Baker has looked this season, I think it's still an upgrade over Bryce Perkins. And so that's where I think that one comes to play, right? If Wolford can't go and it's going to be rolling out there with Bryce Perkins, I think that they'll find a way to get Baker acclimated there much quicker to bring around there, because those injuries like that, the Rams just can't seem to get right when it comes to some of this injury that they've been dealing with. So anyway, that's kind of where I see that one at. And the Rams, again, I don't think that the Rams are going to put up more than about 10, 15 points in this one. So not going to surprise me if you see the Raiders get to 20 points, 21 points, and actually that's it. I think it's a 20-14 game. So the under as well. That's where I'm taking that. Alex also calling for the Raiders to cover and the under. Jaden saying that it is a 14-person league at that waiver claim. So at that point, right, if you're sitting 6 or lower in the waiver priority, I'd still probably take it. The other question that I would have for you, Jaden, is how long has Kareem Hunt been on waivers? Like, this is one of those that if he sat there for 2 or 3 weeks, I don't think anything really changes at that point that I would be going through there. And if you've got the chance of, even if you miss him on waivers, if you can add him as a free agent tomorrow after waivers run, there's no reason to just, not hang on there if you're that worried about doing the waiver priority. Like, this isn't one of those that this is a guy that's going to make or break your roster going into the playoffs here. This is one of those that you might be playing a little bit of keep away for a handcuff from the Chubb manager. This might be one of those that you're doing a little bit of a depth play on this thing, but this isn't one of those that you're going to pick up any of those guys to plug into your lineup this week, or at least I hope that that's not the case. And if they've sat there for a couple of weeks, you know what? I might just wait around there and see if I'm in a league that after the waivers run, it's free agency. I might wait around and pick him up as a free agent then, where I don't have to waste a waiver priority if that's a concern for you. Yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
No, cosign. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Cool. All righty. So, all right. So Jaden saying that he was dropped last Wednesday. So Jaden, I think you've got a little bit of your answer in that answer in itself right there, right? If he was dropped last Wednesday, most leagues have it where the player has to hang on waivers for a day or two before they can be picked up. So that means that they cleared the first set of waivers there. Nobody picked him up for the games this weekend looking to go. And so, maybe they didn't realize he was out there, some of that stuff, but it's one of those that if you really feel like you need that kind of depth, sure, spend the waiver priority. I'm probably not spending more than a sixth waiver priority claim on him, and go from there, right? Like, is your roster markedly improved with him or without him? And if you're spending more, if the answer is it's not markedly improved with him, and you're spending more than about a mid waiver claim on that thing, I'd probably let that one go, man.
Cosign.
Cool. All righty. That's going to move us into the pine and the shine for week 14. Last week, for most leagues, fantasy football, regular season here. So we're going to go ahead and get into the Pines. Alex is calling for Amari Cooper against Cincinnati to be a Pine this week, saying that Watson's still not up to speed. The Bengals allow the lowest completion percentage. So Amari Cooper is Alex's Pine for this week. What about you, Kevin?
I'm going to say Travis Etienne's my Pine this week. I know. It's just one of the first times I've gone against one of the guys on your home team or your home league roster. Like,
it's true.
Going up against the Titans, it's a divisional matchup. Trevor Lawrence is dinged up here a little bit. Like, it just none of this really spells well for Travis Etienne at this point. So, I am avoiding him in DFS. Obviously, in most situations, if he's on your season-long roster, you're playing him this week, but have flex expectations. Do not have high-end RB2, low-end RB1 expectations.
I like that. I like that a lot. Alrighty. So my Pine is going to be a guy we talked about earlier this episode, Rachaad White, right? Like we talked about earlier, going up against an extremely tough matchup in San Francisco. Most expert consensus rankings that I see out there see him as a, kind of a back end RB2, right? So kind of in that RB20 type of range. I think this is probably more of an RB3 week or worse for him. So I'm going to say that he's a Pine on this one. I don't like the timeshare that I think him and Leonard Fournette are fully into. I don't like the matchup. I want no part of that, and I'm pivoting anywhere that I can on that one. That's going to go ahead and move us over and into the Shine here. And so the Shine, right, who do we think is going to outperform? Who do we think is going to have a great one? And Alex took the one that I was really thinking about heading into this one. So, but Zeke Elliott versus Houston, the Texans' worst run defense in the league. And yeah, the Texans, if you got a running back and you can play against Houston, start him. It's that simple. So I like your call there, Alex.
No, absolutely. I'm taking TJ Hawkinson, a little bit of a revenge game, right? Against the Lions. It's a juicy matchup anyway. But Hawkinson's been very involved in this Minnesota passing offense since he came to town. I see no reason why that changes here against his former teammates in Detroit. So TJ Hawkinson, Shine for me.
I like that. I like that one a lot. I'm going to go with a guy that, we have, we don't oftentimes get many quarterback calls when it comes to the Shine.
Had one last week. How'd that work out for me?
Well, yeah, that's true. I'm going to go with a name that you normally wouldn't hear much on there, but you did mention him earlier tonight in a juicy matchup. And that's Jared Goff going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Finally seemingly has a full complement of wide receivers there. I love the matchup, right? The Vikings allow a ton of downfield passing yards. That's usually one of the knocks that we have on Jared Goff is that, he is such a dink and dunk kind of guy. This could be one of those that we could actually see this thing, see him spread the ball downfield a little bit. So I love Amon-Ra St. Brown this week here as well. That was almost one of those that I went that way out, and I'm like, that just feels like too easy a pickings. So I'll take the guy that's throwing him the ball. Jared Goff's going to be my Shine of the week. We'll see if he can't get up into, right, that's a tall task because he's still ranked as a QB1, very back end QB1. So it's going to take a great performance, get to like RB6 for me to hit this one, but I'm confident we'll get there. All right.
Yeah, I think you can get there too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right there. Jaden saying that they're 11th on waivers. Yeah, if you're 11th on waivers, like Jaden, you think about it this way: if you're 11th on waivers and you're going into the playoffs start this week. How many of those teams are already not paying attention at all? Right, like the majority of the teams that didn't make the playoffs probably are not even looking in to go through some of this stuff. I know some leagues do. Some leagues don't even allow for waiver claims for teams that are eliminated from the playoffs to go through. So there's a lot of things that could be going on there. But yeah, if you're 11th on waivers and you pick up, Kareem Hunt and you're worried about dropping back to 14th on waivers, I wouldn't be that concerned about that one, man. I really wouldn't. I think that you'll be all right there. Yeah, same thing too. If you were in a fab league and you were telling me that you had to spend $1 or $2 to pick him up, okay, wouldn't worry about it. I'd go ahead and spend the $1 or $2 and go that route. So you'll be fine. 11th on waivers. I think you're there, right? And everyone below you is out, right? Like you just said that there as well, right? So there's your answer. So if everybody below you is out on waiver claims, I really aren't worrying about that, because if they're already out, they're already eliminated. Chances are they're not going to be trying to slip in there to get a waiver claim. So even if you move back to 14th waiver claim, you probably didn't really move back at all there with 3 or 4 teams ahead of you that aren't paying attention anymore. So I would not be worried about losing my 11th waiver, my 11th priority on the waiver claim to pick up Kareem Hunt for a depth piece. So I would do it.
Fact.
So Jaden, that's as declarative, I think, as we've gotten on that one. Go ahead and do it. Burn your 11th priority, pick up Kareem Hunt. Let's go get it. Alrighty. And so again, guys, we're going to start closing this thing down here in just a little bit. So if you've got any questions, comments, anything like that, let's throw them out there. Let's get them talked about. Let's get you guys ready to rock and roll here. Week 14, looking at playoffs and beyond. Let's go. Final march here towards the cash and trophies. Terry in the comments here. Good to see you back in the chat there, Terry. Pick 3, DK, CMC, Zeke, Godwin, Miles, Connor, Olave. Olave's on bye this week.
Yeah, Olave's on a bye this week. Man.
Zeke is a smash. He's going up against the Texans. I'd absolutely do that.
I like Zeke. I think I like Zeke, DK, and CMC.
I don't have a problem with that. I kind of like that one as well. I'm actually pulling up and trying to get back to some of my rankings that I've got here.
Miles Sanders plays the Giants. That could be okay. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think I'm playing Miles Sanders over CMC. DK is going up against Carolina. Godwin's going up against San Francisco. I think that's going to be a tough matchup for Tampa Bay all the way around. So nice that you have a pivot from Godwin. I think DK fits right in well with that. So I think I really do. I think it's the first 3 you have lifted: DK, CMC, and Zeke. If you really wanted Miles Sanders in your lineup, I would go Miles Sanders and then bench DK if that's really what you want to do, and go 3 running backs. But DK's been pretty damn serviceable here the last few weeks, so I like his upside. Sanders has it as well, but DK's fun to watch, so I like having him in my rosters.
Yeah, I was going through that again, just double checking some of my rankings and some of the early stuff that I'm working on here for this week. Yeah, it's DK, CMC, and Zeke with Miles Sanders a close 4th on there. So yeah, and Olave makes 0 sense to start. The Saints are on bye this week, so that's normally I would have a different answer with where I'd have Olave, but yeah, that's an easy bench for me. Terry also asking Debo or D-Hop. I'm going D-Hop, I think.
I'm going D-Hop. Patriots got gashed a couple weeks ago by Jefferson, right? So we've seen that that's possible. We don't know how this Purdy, Ayuk situation is going to work. So I would rather play D-Hop.
Yeah, I see D-Hop. Here's a call for you. I see D-Hop probably a pretty easy top 10 wide receiver this week. Debo, I think he's wide receiver 2 and back end wide receiver 2 at this point, the way I'm kind of looking at this thing. So easy D-Hop for me as well there, Terry. Chiefs or Raiders defense?
I'm going the Chiefs.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well, right? The matchup is just as prime for the Chiefs going up against the Broncos, who, on a great week will score 15 points. And Russell Wilson will likely turn the ball over, although Melvin Gordon isn't there to fumble the ball away. So that's a tough road there. But the Broncos will find a way to turn the ball over at least once or twice there. And the fact that the Chiefs will, I think, not give up many yards and not give up many points. I think it is the Chiefs. The Raiders, while the Rams are pretty putrid right now, the Raiders defense is not much better than the Rams offense. So you'll see the Raiders potentially get after the quarterback, get some sacks on it, but they're one broken play away from giving up points on any play. So yeah. Prediction on the Steelers and Ravens game, Jaden is asking. I got an entire Friday show dedicated to Sunday. So we'll give you a sneak peek though, Jaden. Just because you're tuning in every episode, we'll give you a little sneak peek as to what we'll be kind of talking about here for Friday on this matchup. So Kevin, thoughts here on Steelers and the Ravens coming up here for week 14?
Sneak peek is I have the Steelers.
That one actually a little surprising. So, and I was actually really surprised when I looked at the because the Ravens defense has been good. Much better than I originally thought they would be coming into the season. Lamar being out certainly does hurt. I do think that you're going to see a lot of I think that you will see the Ravens pass the ball more than we typically do. I really like Mark Andrews this week, especially if Huntley's back there throwing the ball. Like that's where Mark Andrews went crazy last year was when Huntley was in the backfield and throwing the ball, and he had that monster stretch going through. Like really, really like Mark Andrews here. I'm sure that I'll probably find a prop for him come the Friday show there. And the over under on this one, it's a low point total, 37. I don't think we get there. This has the feeling of a 10 to 13 slobber knocker type of thing here. So, there you go, Jaden. Little sneak peek into Friday, and of course, we'll go deeper in that when we get to that Friday show under the Friday Night Fantasy Football lights. Terry asking Debo, Latavius Murray, Pacheco, or Gabe Davis, Dulcich. Okay, there's two questions here. Debo, Murray, Pacheco, or Gabe, Dulcich, or Njoku. Thanks, fellas. I'm going Dulcich in the second part. And in the first part, man, oh man.
I'm not going Gabe Davis against the Jets.
No.
Gabe Davis is out for me. Debo is out for. I think I'm going Pacheco.
I don't know that.
I think that's kind of where I'm leaning with that. I really don't want to be messing around with trying to figure out what's going to go on in San Francisco here at the moment. Like we know Pacheco is going to see a good amount of touches. The Broncos, when they give it up big. And they do play Patrick Mahomes tight in the secondary. So I think they're going to be forced to run the ball a bit more, i.e. Pacheco.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Gabe Davis is a tough one to move away from. I get the appeal and the allure of playing him there just because the ceiling is so high. And yeah, he's one of those guys that can break one on any play and take it to the house. Pacheco, has a little bit of a split backfield there, but I think he's going to get more of the work. I don't think we'll see as much Jet McKinnon because there's a good chance that the Chiefs may actually not throw the ball as much as we're used to and see a little bit more of the run game on that one because I think the game script is going to be, the Broncos, 3 points, 6 points, something like that. I almost said 7 and then realized that there's like zero chance that the Broncos are going to score a touchdown. Debo, it's Pacheco for me. So Dulcich and Pacheco, that's where I'm rolling there as well. As I kind of talk myself into that. All righty.
I like it.
Jaden saying that Pickett gonna pick them apart. I'd be cautious on that one. I think Pickett has shown some decent things and is developing well, but I think he's got a long way to still go. And that Ravens defense has been pretty decent throughout this season, especially as they start to come on stronger as the season goes along there. So, I don't know that I'm necessarily gonna sign off on Pickett, gonna pick him apart. I think Kenny Pickett might be initial projections 210, 215 total yards on passing the ball.
I was gonna tell you QB 19 on the week.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let me pull up some of my initial stuff here and let's just Kenny Pickett, QB 21. That's where I've got him, currently. So
serviceable in 2 quarterback leagues. I'm not playing him in a single quarterback at all.
No, I wouldn't. Hard pass. Yeah. So I think it's fair. He probably scores a touch, or he probably throws a touchdown. Probably, in that I'm going to say 220 is where that'll be. And but he'll probably take 2 or 3 sacks, and we'll probably see a pick out of him. That's where I'm thinking. So while Pickett's might pick him apart, the Ravens are also going to pick Pickett. So there's a tongue twister for you. Alrighty.
Peter Piper Pickett.
Yes, exactly. All right, Jaden, I always appreciate those ones. Those are a lot of fun there. Guys, any other thoughts out there? Let's make sure that we hit those up. We get those in because we're going to start signing off here, and we'll of course make sure we answer the questions coming in there. But Kevin, any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
No, good luck this week, right? Like hopefully you're already in, but if you're still fighting, congratulations that you're still in the hunt. So let us know if you have any questions. We'll help out best we can. And then on to the playoffs, right? Then we start focusing on championships and how we get there. So let us know, but have a good weekend, guys. Enjoy the slate.
Cash and trophies. The march is on. Let's go get it, guys. And of course, you can find us on all the socials, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Good Old Boys FF. Over there on Twitch, twitch.tv/GoodOldBoysFF. Give us a follow over there. One of the places you can catch this live stream. We go live Tuesdays, Friday nights, 11 p.m. Eastern during the season. And we'll get the off-season schedule worked out here. Let y'all know here very soon what that's going to look like here. And, of course, the best place to support this independent podcast is over on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@GoodOldBoysFF. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button over there. Give us a, give us a little subscribe. Help us out there. Plus, you'll get all the notifications if you hit that little bell when we go live so that you can tune in on those as well. But, guys, I think that's going to do it for us. He's Kevin. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloo.